Welcome to episode number 1 of All Things Russian, dedicated to Russian achievements in arts and technology, from the Tsarist Empire to the Russian Federation. This episode will be devoted to the bear, an animal that is closely linked to Russia. One reason is because it is indigenous to the Russian territory. Another reason is because it was widely used from the 17th century on as a cruel caricature for Russia in Europe. As we'll see, it was cleverly recuperated by the USSR and the Russian Federation to soften their image and describe their strong position in the international arena. Russia can safely be described as the land of the bear thanks to an estimated population of 140,000, divided into 4 species: the Eurasian brown bear, the Kamchatka bear, the Ussuri bear, and of course, the polar bear. All these animals are under threat because of contacts with human beings and climate changes, but they are not protected in the same way. Brown bears can be hunted, whereas polar bears are actively protected by the Russian government. For example, in 2020, a reserve covering some 3,000 square miles was created on the coast of the East Siberian Sea to protect as many as 25 polar bears living in the area. The widespread presence of bears on Russian territory and the imposing nature of the animal certainly explain why this animal became the object of a cult in the Russian distant past. For example, necklaces made of bear's teeth were found on archaeological sites on the Upper and Mid-Volga dating back 3,500 years. In the same way, the bear naturally became a recurrent character in Russian folk tales and fairy tales. The main trait of its personality varies, however. In folk tales, he can be frightening towards children and old people, or gullible to the point of being the victim of tricks played by a peasant or a dog. In fairy tales, it can be the faithful and somewhat dopey companion of a little girl, or the very masculine husband of a young woman or an old one. As far as local traditions are concerned, bears also played in so-called bear comedies. The Sergashki district, close to Nizhny Novgorod, was famous from the 16th century to the end of the 19th century for bear taming. Several villages in that area specialized in teaching tricks to bear cubs and show them in circus. This partly explains why a bear appears on the town of Sergach coat of arms. In Western Europe, bears have been closely associated with Russia in cartoons since at least the second half of the 17th century. First, they appeared on geographical maps to highlight the exotic character of the country. Then, in the beginning of the 19th century, the animal became a symbol for the entire country. Famous British satirical magazines like Punch and Harper's Weekly used it constantly. From the middle of the 19th century, the bear as a symbol for Russia enjoyed a new lease of life thanks to cartoon political maps. The earliest of these highly imaginative cartoons was possibly that of the German caricaturist Berensohn in 1854, at the time of the Crimean War. This famous propaganda map, called Komische Karte des Kriegsschauplatses, set the tone for years to come, attaching highly negative connotations to the bear and therefore to Russia. On it, the border of Russia has the shape of a bear holding a crown and a knut, and folds in its fur are shown by words such as cruelty, bigotry, stupidity, falsity, treachery, slavery, and repression. Inside Russia, thanks to the 1905 revolution and the abolishment of censure, the allegory of the bear was used to describe Russian domestic affairs. The bear could stand for the oppressed Russian population, the Tsarist system, or the impotence of the new power in the face of war, rising criminality, and dire public finances. Things changed after October 1917. Lenin's government banned the allegory of the bear for Russia because of its association to the Tsarist world. Still, the trend continued in the West and even sharpened with the Cold War. From the Berlin blockade in 1948 on, Western propaganda used it abundantly. For example, from 1961 to 1991, interception of long-range Soviet Tu-95 bombers by US jet fighters around Alaska and in the area between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom was called Bear Intercept, as bear was the NATO nickname for the Tu-95 bomber. In 1980, the Soviet Union cleverly attempted to capitalize on the world-famous allegory of the bear to improve its international image. Moscow welcomed the Winter Olympic Games that year, and the Kremlin came up with the adorable character of Misha the bear as the mascot for the Games. It was designed by the experienced book illustrator Viktor Chizikov and proved a complete success, both commercially and politically. This capital of sympathy disappeared after the disintegration of USSR in 1991, however. It was only during the first decade of 2000 that a renewed attempt was made by the Kremlin to reappropriate the image of the bear for its own purposes. It became a mark of so-called Russianness and a tool to soften the country's image in the eyes of the world. It also pervaded the Russian domestic scene. In 2003, a bear appeared on the logo of Russia's largest party, Edina Rasi. In 2007, a new flag appeared during the qualification matches for the European Football Championship, showing an aggressive-looking bear with huge claws against the background of the Russian flag and the words "Вперед Россия," meaning "Forward Russia," across it. The same flag was used for the 2010 Winter Olympic Games in Vancouver, Canada, and the 2014 Winter Olympic Games in Sochi, Russia. Incidentally, a modernized version of Misha the bear was used as the mascot for these games. Another product of this propaganda was the 3D animated series Masha and Misha, released in 2008. The adventures of Misha the oafish bear and Masha the clever Russian girl proved a great success and are now shown in 120 countries. The image of the bear was also used in Russian politics. In 2010, Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, was photographed in the Russian Arctic region with a tranquilized polar bear, helping scientists place a GPS on the animal. In 2014, he pronounced a speech in which he directly compared Russia to a bear whom the West wanted to chain before it could rip out our teeth and claws, to use his own words. The bear as a symbol for Russia has become since the beginning of the 21st century the center of an information war. Having reappropriated the symbol of the bear and insisting on its aggressive side, the Russian Federation has now fine-tuned its propaganda to show a proud country bent on challenging the existing world order. Do not forget to check the links for illustrations, as I do not hold copyrights for them. Thank you for listening.